Hmm? My granddaughter turned 7 on a Saturday in October. I remember because the leaves had just started turning, that particular shade of orange I always loved, and I'd spent the whole week baking her birthday cake. Lemon with cream cheese frosting, her favorite. I made it from scratch the way my mother taught me. 3 layers, roses piped along the edges. I wanted everything to be perfect for her. I should have known something was wrong the moment my son-in-law walked through the front door. He didn't say hello, didn't say happy birthday to his own daughter. He walked in, looked around my living room like he was inspecting a property he didn't want to buy, and set his jacket on my good chair without asking. His sister came in right behind him. She had that same look she always had, like she was doing everyone a favor just by showing up. My daughter came in last. She was carrying the balloons, a bag of gifts, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I noticed. I always noticed. I just didn't say anything yet. That was my mistake, not the only one I made over those 3 years, but the one I think about most. My daughter. I'll call her my baby girl, because that's what she'll always be to me. Even at 34, she met her husband when she was 31. He was charming in the way that some men are charming, the kind that makes you think you're the most interesting person in the room. He remembered small details. He asked follow-up questions. He laughed at the right moments. I liked him at first. I want to be honest about that because it matters. I liked him, and I thought he was good for her. She'd had a hard few years before him, a broken engagement, a job change, a move across the city. She was finding her footing, and then he appeared, and suddenly she seemed settled, calmer. Happy, I thought. It took me longer than it should have to understand the difference between calm and quiet, between happy and afraid. They married 14 months after they met. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. I danced with my baby girl to a song her father used to love. He passed 8 years ago, and I felt his absence at that wedding like a hole in my chest. And I told her she looked beautiful, and I meant every word. She did. She was radiant. I cried, the good kind of tears, the kind that come from watching your child step into a life you hope will be everything she deserves. His mother sat at the head table and did not smile once during the ceremony. I noticed that too. The first year, things seemed fine on the surface. They bought a house about 20 minutes from me. My baby girl kept her job as a nurse. She'd worked hard for that career, 12-hour shifts, nights, weekends, never complained. I was proud of her. I am still proud of her. They had my granddaughter, and I was there at the hospital, and when that little girl came into the world, I thought my heart might burst. But slowly, quietly, things started to shift. My daughter started calling less. When she did call, she sounded careful, like she was choosing her words before she said them. I'd ask how work was going, and she'd say, fine. I'd ask how the baby was sleeping, and she'd say, fine. Everything was fine, fine, fine. Nothing was ever actually fine. I started dropping by on weekends. Sometimes I'd come by and the house would be very clean and very quiet, in a way that felt like the aftermath of something, not the presence of peace. My son-in-law would be polite, but his politeness had a temperature to it, cold just below the surface. He'd make coffee, he'd make small talk, and he'd watch my daughter the whole time, not the way a man watches a woman he loves, but the way a person monitors something they want to control. I asked her once, just the two of us, while she was helping me with dishes after Sunday dinner. I kept my voice low. I said, "Baby girl, are you happy?" She didn't answer right away. She kept her eyes on the sink and she said, "Mom, I'm fine." I put down my dish towel. I said, "I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked if you were happy." She didn't cry. I almost wish she had tears I could work with. Instead, she smiled in a way that hurt me to look at, and she said, "He's a good provider, Mom. He works hard." "That's not what I asked," I said. She changed the subject, and I let her, because I didn't know yet what I was dealing with. I thought maybe it was just a hard season. New baby, demanding jobs, adjustment. I gave it more time. I told myself I was respecting her choices. What I was actually doing was hoping I was wrong. His sister started coming around more that second year. She had opinions about everything: how my daughter kept the house, how she dressed, how she raised my granddaughter. She'd make comments that were almost compliments, the kind with a little knife hidden inside. Things like, "Oh, the baby's hair is so interesting the way you did it," or, "I love how you're not worried about what the neighbors think." Dressed up insults, the kind that leave no mark you can point to. My daughter laughed them off. Or pretended to. I watched her shrink, incrementally, the way a flower wilts so slowly you don't notice until it's already gone. His sister and my son-in-law were close in the way that sometimes skips past family and turns into something else. They had their own language, their own alliances, and my daughter was always slightly outside of it, no matter how hard she tried. She tried very hard. I watched her try. She learned recipes his sister liked. She changed how she wore her hair because he preferred it a certain way. She stopped talking about her work friends because he found them annoying. She stopped staying late to cover shifts at the hospital because he didn't like coming home to an empty house. She stopped being herself, is what I'm telling you. One small piece at a time, and I was watching it happen, and I was scared, and I didn't know how to reach her. That October, I planned my granddaughter's birthday party with everything I had. I decorated my backyard with streamers and a banner I painted myself. I ordered a Princess Castle bounce house because that little girl had talked about nothing else for 2 months. I made the lemon cake. I invited my sister, my neighbor Carol, who'd known my baby girl since she was in diapers, and a few of the birthday girl's little friends from preschool. My son-in-law had said they'd arrive at noon. They showed up at 2:15. By then the other children were restless. The ice cream was half melted, and my granddaughter had asked me 4 times where her daddy was. Each time I told her he was on his way, sweetheart. Each time she accepted that with the patience of a child who has already learned not to expect too much. That broke something in me, watching her accept it. When they finally walked in, my son-in-law offered no apology. He said something about traffic. His sister, who had apparently ridden with them, was on her phone and didn't look up. My daughter set down the bag of gifts and immediately started helping me move things around, apologizing quietly for him, the way she always did. The party started up again. The children jumped in the bounce house. My granddaughter opened her gifts, and she was so happy, so purely and completely happy, that for an hour I forgot what was sitting underneath the surface of that afternoon. Then we came inside for cake. I carried it out from the kitchen, candles lit, and everyone sang happy birthday. My granddaughter blew out the candles on the first try, and she was so proud of herself, bouncing on her heels, and I was cutting the first slice when my son-in-law pushed his plate back. He said, "She doesn't need cake." The table went quiet. My granddaughter looked at her father. She was 7 years old and she'd just blown out her candles, and her father had just told her she didn't need her own birthday cake. I set down the knife. I kept my voice even. I said, "It's her birthday." He didn't look at me. He said, "She's already had enough sugar today." He said it like that, settled it, like he was explaining something obvious to someone slow. His sister nodded, actually nodded. She said, "He's right, too much sugar isn't good for them at this age." My granddaughter was looking at her plate. She wasn't crying. She was just very, very still, in the way a child goes still, when they've already learned that feelings don't change outcomes. That stillness, that quiet resignation in a 7-year-old. That was the thing that cracked me open completely. I put a slice of cake on my granddaughter's plate. I said, "It is her birthday, and she will have cake." I said it quietly. I said it once. My son-in-law looked at me then. His jaw tightened, and before I could say another word, he reached across the table and grabbed my daughter's wrist. She had started to reach for the cake knife to cut a slice for herself, and he squeezed. Hard. I saw her face change. I saw her go somewhere behind her eyes. I said no cake. Not to the child. To my daughter. He said it to my daughter. The table was completely silent. My sister had stopped moving. Carol had her hand over her mouth. The children didn't understand what was happening, but they knew something was wrong, the way children always know. And my daughter said, "Okay." She said it so softly, I almost didn't hear it. She said, "Okay." His sister let out a small breath. Not discomfort, relief. Like a line had been held that she was worried might not hold. I looked at my daughter. She would not look at me. She was looking at her plate, and her wrist was red where he'd grabbed it, and she was sitting at her own child's birthday party having just said, "Okay." 63 years I have been on this earth. I raised 2 children, mostly alone after my husband got sick and died too young. I worked 31 years as an office administrator, and I never missed a day that was an illness or family emergency. I have buried my mother, my husband, and my best friend of 40 years. I have seen hard things, but something happened inside me at that table that I do not have complete words for. It was not anger exactly, though anger was part of it. It was more like clarity. A door closing on every version of this where I waited and hoped and gave it more time. I did not raise my voice. I did not make a scene in front of the children. I stood up from the table and I said to my granddaughter, "Come help Grandma in the kitchen for a minute, sweetheart." She took my hand without question, the way children do when they trust you, and we walked into the kitchen together. I gave her a slice of cake right there at the counter. I told her it was our secret dessert. She ate it standing up and got frosting on her nose, and I wiped it off, and I held her face in my hands for a moment, and I looked at her. I thought about what she was learning, what she was absorbing right now at 7, about what love looks like and what women accept and what is normal. I thought about the stillness I'd seen in her at that table, the resignation. I thought, not this child, not my granddaughter. I got my phone from the counter where I'd left it. I opened the camera, and I walked back to the doorway of the dining room. He didn't see me at first. He was talking at my daughter, something low and controlled, and she was sitting exactly as I'd left her, hands in her lap, not moving. His sister was scrolling through her phone. My sister and Carol were very still. I pressed record. I stood in that doorway for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I know because I checked the timestamp afterward. He said things in that 2 minutes and 40 seconds that I will not repeat here, but I recorded every word. His sister said 3 things. I recorded those too. My daughter said nothing. I recorded her silence as well, because her silence was its own kind of evidence. He finally noticed me when he looked up and saw my phone. His face changed. He started to say something. I think he was going to tell me to put it away. And I lowered the phone and I looked at him and I said, "I have a very good lawyer and a very long memory. I'd like you to leave my home now, please." The please was deliberate. I wanted him to understand that my politeness was not weakness, that I could be courteous and completely serious at the same time. He laughed. He actually laughed. He looked at his sister and she shook her head slightly like I was something mildly ridiculous, and he pushed back from the table and he said something about not wanting to be here anyway. His sister gathered her things. He told my daughter to get her jacket. My daughter stood up, and I said, "Baby girl, you can stay." She stopped. He said her name. One word. A warning. I looked at my daughter. I kept my voice soft. I said, "You can stay." She stood there between us for a long moment. The children were watching. My sister was watching. Carol was watching. Nobody moved. And then my daughter set her jacket back down on the chair. I will not pretend that was the end of things. I will not pretend that one moment fixed everything, because it didn't. What happened next was long and hard and complicated in the way that leaving always is. When you have a child together and shared finances and years tangled up in someone else's version of your life. There were nights she went back. There were nights she called me crying from a parking lot because she didn't know what else to do. There were lawyers and paperwork and a custody process that wore her down to something thin and exhausted. I was there for every single part of it. The video I recorded that day, 2 minutes and 40 seconds in a dining room doorway, turned out to matter more than I could have known. My lawyer said it clearly showed the pattern of control. It corroborated what my daughter began to document. It was not the only thing, but it was something concrete in a situation that abusers count on being invisible. He fought hard. His sister made statements. There were months where I did not sleep well. But here is what I know about patient, methodical people. We do not stop. We do not get tired the way people who rely on force get tired. We just keep going. Document, communicate, show up, keep going. My daughter has her own apartment now, 12 minutes from me. She has her daughter. She went back to picking up extra shifts at the hospital when she wants to, not because she has to, but because she loves her work and she's good at it. She came over last Sunday and we made dinner together. She put on music and we danced in my kitchen the way we used to when she was small, and my granddaughter danced with us. My granddaughter is doing well. She's in second grade. She draws horses and wants a dog. She is loud and funny and opinionated, and she has slowly started being still less often, I notice. I always notice. There are things I wish I had done sooner. I carry them. I think every mother in my position carries some version of that weight. The years of giving it more time, of respecting choices, of hoping you were wrong. I am not here to tell you I handled everything perfectly because I did not. What I am here to tell you is that I handled it when it counted. When my baby girl was sitting at her own child's birthday party with a red wrist saying, "Okay," I handled it then. If you are a mother reading this and something in these words is familiar to you, the careful phone calls, the eyes that won't quite meet yours, the way your child has gone quiet in a way that isn't peace, trust what you know. You have been reading that child since before she could speak. You know the difference between fine and fine. Don't wait as long as I did. Get documentation. Find a good lawyer. Build the foundation before the crisis, because once the crisis comes, things move fast, and you want to have something solid underneath you. And if you are reading this and you are the one sitting at the table with your hands in your lap, I want you to hear this. Someone loves you enough to stand in a doorway for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Someone will say you can stay. Someone will be there on the other side of the hard part. Please find your voice. Please find your way out. It does not have to be the rest of your life. My granddaughter ate her birthday cake standing at the kitchen counter with frosting on her nose. She was 7 years old, and it was her day, and she had cake. That's where it started, right there. I've thought a lot about cause and effect since all of this happened. Not in any formal way. I'm not a philosopher. I'm a retired office administrator who makes good lemon cake, but in the quiet, practical way you think about things when you've watched them play out over years and you finally understand the full shape of what occurred. Derek didn't become who he was overnight. That's the first thing I had to reckon with. The man who grabbed my daughter's wrist at a 7-year-old's birthday party didn't wake up one morning and decide to be that person. He was built that way, slowly, by years of being allowed, by a sister who nodded, by a family culture that called control love and called silence respect. Every time someone around him accepted what he did, it confirmed for him that he could keep doing it. That's not an excuse. I want to be clear about that. It is never, ever an excuse. But understanding how something grew helps you understand how to stop it from growing further. Maya paid the price for choices she didn't fully understand she was making. That's the part that still sits heavy with me. She didn't choose to be controlled. She chose to stay, yes, and she chose quiet over confrontation, but those choices were made inside a reality he constructed around her, brick by brick, until she couldn't see the walls anymore. I watched it happen, and I still struggle to explain exactly when it shifted from adjustment to entrapment. What I know is that by the time I saw her sit at that table and say, "Okay," with a red wrist and empty eyes, she had been living inside that constructed reality for years. Dismantling it took time she deserved not to have to spend. Renee's nodding. That small, satisfied nod is the detail I come back to more than almost anything else. Because Renee wasn't the one doing the grabbing. Renee was the one confirming it was acceptable. And in some ways, that confirmation is its own kind of damage. It told Derek he was right. It told Maya she was alone. It told my granddaughter, who was sitting right there at that table, that this was just how things go. Silence and agreement in the face of cruelty are not neutral. I learned that later than I should have. What I did right, and I say this not to congratulate myself but because I think it matters to name it, was that I stayed calm enough to think. I did not react in the moment with emotion, even though emotion was flooding through me. I thought about what would actually help my daughter, not what would make me feel better, not what would make a scene, but what would actually help her. That kind of thinking is hard when your heart is pounding. It is a muscle you have to build over a lifetime of hard moments, and I am grateful I had built it. The phone recording was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That's nothing, that's less than a song, and it changed everything. There is something I want every mother reading this to hold on to. Your steadiness is not passivity. Your patience is not weakness. The fact that you are measuring your words and building your documentation and staying calm while everything in you wants to break, that is not giving up. That is strategy. That is the long game. And the long game, when you play it right, is the one that actually protects your child. My granddaughter is in 2nd grade. She draws horses. She is loud in my kitchen on Sunday evenings, and she has frosting on her face more often than not. She is becoming, right in front of me, a person who expects to take up space. That is the whole point. That is what we were fighting for.